So I've already set up my FLA. I have a new document called motionpresets.fla with a black background, 30 frames per second. And then I have a layer called Flash that just contains a movie clip of the Flash icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to animate this icon in 3D, so it creates a nice seamless loop of 3D animation. So the first thing I need to do before I do any type of animation is to create a motion tween on this layer. So I'm just going to right click and choose Create Motion Tween. So that drops in a motion tween 30 frames long or 1 second by default. So for this animation, I'm going to increase it to 50 frames because I want the animation to happen over 50 frames. Now if I wanted to, I could now grab the 3D rotation tool and start rotating this and animating it here on the timeline. But one of the great new features is we can actually do all of our animation in the motion editor if you want to, and for things like 3D animation, it's actually a lot easier to do it all from the motion editor. So I'm going to open that up, and I'm just going to hide the properties panel for right now, and let's bring this up. Okay, so we can see here are all of my properties. Now this dashed line that you see on all of the properties, that essentially means that no keyframes have been set for any of these properties. So we're actually going to be animating the rotation Y and rotation Z properties. So I'm going to first select rotation Y, and we can see now I have a zoomed in view of rotation Y. And we can increase this slider for viewable frames so that we see all 50 frames. So now, obviously, when I start out, I want it to be at a rotation of 0 where it currently is. But when I get to the end of the 50 frames, I want it to go to 360. So I'm going to put that in, and we can now see that over the course of these 50 frames, we're now rotating 360 degrees. So now if you were to try to do that on the timeline and not in the motion editor, you kind of run into issues where Flash takes shortcuts on the animation. So for things like this, it's definitely easier to do it in the motion editor. Okay, so now we've set the rotation Y, and I can just hit enter to see what that looks like. And if I hit Command Enter, we'll see that now we have just a nice looping 3D animation. We're going to add rotation on another axis here. So I'm going to go to rotation Z, and again here at frame 50, we'll just make sure the playhead's at frame 50, and now I'm going to put in a value of -360, and we can see here what's happening. It's starting at 0 and going down to -360. So now when we scrub here, you can see it's moving on 2 axes, giving us this nice animation. If I hit Control or Command Enter, you can now see we have this nice looping 3D animation. So pretty complex stuff, but extremely easy to do in the motion editor. And again, it's much easier to do it here than it is actually out on the timeline. But what I can do on the timeline now, let's say I want to make this slower, I can just drag this, and all of the keyframes are going to be moved so that the entire animation is now happening slower. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Let's say I want to save this out as a preset, so later on I could apply this same type of 3D rotation to any object. Well, that's extremely easy to do. So I can go back here, expand this panel, and now I'm going to go to Motion Presets. So the Motion Presets panel, first off, it comes with a whole range of default presets, and if we click here, we can see the previews of what those look like. Now some of them are better than others. As you can see, here's a fly-in with blur. There are some 3D things here, but to be honest, they're not done quite as good as what you could do yourself. And you should definitely aim to create your own presets that kind of match your animation style. Okay, so now that I have this, now I can come under Custom Presets, and I can click this Save Selection as Preset button. So now it's asking me to give it a name, and let me see, I'm going to call it 360 rotation 3D and click OK. So now you can see under custom presets I now have this item in here.